Hi guys, welcome to part 24 of the Formatables Refactor. So while you guys were away, I had a quick go at moving the project items expander to its new location. I managed to update this guy here to just do that work. He's already doing some build stuff, so I thought, well, I might as well put it there. And so that's kind of seemed to have worked, and I think at this point in time we are more or less done with all the top level C# things, I think. So what we'll do now is we're going to start removing things and see what happens, see what breaks. We'll start by just removing the expander itself, and I should think this should be hopefully straightforward enough. So we're just going to have the usual breaks. Make sure we have an English keyboard. So I suspect now we're just going to have a couple of breaks that should hopefully not be too complicated. I had to restart Emacs because I did a dist upgrade and it started messing around with some of the Emacs modules, so I had no option but to restart Emacs, quite disappointingly. It's always a painful thing to do when you have lots of buffers. Which reminds me, I haven't actually connected on IRC or email, but that's fine. Okay, so we'll just keep going until hopefully, not quite that, until hopefully we get to run the tests, and if all is well, the test will go green. That doesn't look too bad. Okay, cool. So, so let's just say text.c# remove project items expander. And so I think after 23 or 24 episodes now, we're getting quite close to the end game of this refactoring. Actually, while we're here, before I forget about it, we added a project items to the model. Don't think we need this. So what this video hopefully will be all about is just a general cleanup, really. We're just going to remove stuff incrementally and make sure nothing breaks until we get to the point where there's nothing left in the project, on the Formatables namespace. So in theory, what we need to do next is to disable the reducer, and then in both the C# and C++, make sure that nothing breaks. And after that, we're almost we're close to the end. So what we'll do is, while we wait for that, we will just actually there's not much we can do because otherwise we'll break the tests. Okay, interesting. I think that's alright. I think this is just a population of that field, but since there's no one using it, hopefully that's not going to make any difference. Yeah, as you can see here, it's compiling, so I'll start the commit while we wait. So logical remove project items from model, and that was good. We'll just get the latest code generator and then just make sure everything's still working. Now, second thing we're going to do then is going to be this reducer business. So what we'll do is we'll simply comment out these guys here. Right, so in here we just want in both cases to make sure the reducer doesn't kick in. Still haven't quite figured out how to comment a region properly. So that switches off the reducer, and then what we need to do then is to go to the new reducer transform in the logical model to text model, and just enable this guy here. And if the refactoring gods are with us, this should be a no op. It should be equivalent basically. Instead of 2 reducers, you just have 1. Okay, that's good. So we could say something like enable a new reducing transform and disable legacy once. Okay, so that's good. So that means we're kind of going where we thought we would be going. So at this point I feel tempted to actually just remove the whole of formatables. But though if I do that, what is going to happen is we will break in the workflow. So what we're going to do is, before we do that, we're just going to do a quick bypass. It is tempting to try to do that, but I think it's just going to cause too much noise, so it's probably most sensible instead to just go to the transforms, and then where we have a formatables model, we're just going to bypass the formatables model and go straight to a regular model, a logical model. So now, should this be a logical model? This is a good question actually. We probably could get a text model here. Though I don't think we need a full-blown text model. So all we're going to be doing is we're going to be looping through the elements. We're going to obtain a set of formatters and obtain a set of helpers, create a context, and then for each formatter we obtain the artifact that corresponds to that formatter. Right, so the logical model will not suffice, which makes sense. Then we take the artifact and then we apply the formatter. So I'm gonna go for a text model, I should think. Might be the best thing to do here. So let's just say something like entities. So Dogen text types entities model, and then really we don't want any references to formatables. So there we go. So if I just say, well, let's just do a couple of things as well. We don't need the aspect properties anymore, and we don't need the assistant properties anymore. And then if we just get text entities model, and I think something like this would do. Now let's do a couple of things here. Let's say const auto and, well, we need a name, and what is that name going to be? It's going to be something like m.logical, because I do not think text models, if you remember, the text model is kind of just an aggregation of physical and logical model. So I think we did not, well, we have a provenance, to be fair. Let's see. To be fair, let's say something like this. Now then, ideally we want to go through the logical physical regions. um, something like this. That's the list of regions, presumably. Yeah. So we just say something like region. Still not quite used to menu desk, to be honest. So m dot logical physical regions. Right. So now we just reverse the logical physical regions. We obtain a region. The region will have an element. So we could do region dot logical elements. We probably should use the ID itself. This is the meta ID, not a meta name. Right, so this is the same. Now, to create the context, what we'll do is we're going to propagate the approach here. So, the context, because we restarted Emacs, we don't have any buffer, so this is rather annoying. But there you are. So the context will contain a text model and a helper transform. Now, because we have a text model, we probably don't need any more for all this noise, so we can just go straight to text entities model. We still need the helpers, can't get away with that. And we need a tracer, so that's fine. And then we can just carry this guy. So what we're trying to do is very carefully make the system decoupled from the Formatables model. Just very slowly to make sure we don't break anything. So let's get rid of everything that we don't need. Populate this guy, name it just M, take the helpers, and there we are. So we're not going to have aspect properties, we're going to have helpers, we're going to have a tracer. Oh, okay, that seems about right. Not entirely sure why the constructor is still moaning, so we'll have another look. Ah, it's just that we forgot to remove these guys here. Right, so they're just basically being carried in the model itself. Now, the much simpler context. Hopefully. Right, so as you can see here, we now have a much simpler context. We may have gone a bit too far with our cleanup. Yeah, we lost tracer. Okay. Right, so hopefully the context now makes more sense. So back to our workflow, we initialize the context. Now we go to the formatters, and in the logical physical region, so we have this clever little method here called get artifact, and that is locating the artifact in this map. This map is more or less just a region if you think about it. So I think I'm just gonna use the proper physical type. So if I just say something like const physical entities region by reference region, we're trying to avoid using the letter R because we used R for return. So, and then if we just make it so that the region is used for the lookup. So artifacts by archetype, and just find the archetype. And even better if we just say const auto ref ABA, and then this will become slightly tidier. And now we can simplify this guy here and say supply the region. Right, so hopefully this makes some sense. And interestingly enough, not quite sure why const physical okay, this is a physical entities region, this is a logical physical region. So if I just say physical region perhaps. Right, so now then, I should think, well, we know what the archetype is because we just did a lookup based on that. No need to go through all of that. And I think I'll take the value out too. Okay, so rather simple, I think. I think with this we should get C# to compile. Now we need to rinse and repeat really, because C++ will have exactly the same sort of approach. And all of this code will eventually be merged into a single workflow, a single method. But that's not part of this work. Oh, in fact, there's one thing we need to do here that we did not do, which is the assistant is going to be a little bit unhappy. Now, we just need to make sure that the assistant has a model. It doesn't, but it has a context, so that's good enough. So if I just say something like context.model aspect properties. Oh, this is a text model, so logical. That seems about right. So similarly, I don't quite remember how much we copied, to be honest. That's all right. Okay, so that solves that problem. Now, we have a similar issue in C++. We shall do a similar cleanup as well. So, this thing here is receiving a formattables model. This is an assistant, so what we really need is a workflow. So, if I just say, please grab me the text model, and if we just look for formattables probably. This is kind of simultaneously a bit boring and a bit exciting, because a bit boring because we're going to have to do a lot of boilerplate stuff, but it's exciting because we're getting quite close to the end of a very long refactoring. So seems like we're taking a different approach here. Start with the easy one. So text, entities, model. This guy here. Then if we jump over to the transforms workflow, and similarly as we've done with C#, just copy and paste a fair bit of this stuff. So we decided to make a method here, but principle is probably the same. So we are gonna have a region. I may actually just be a bit lazy here and actually copy the entire structure from C++, from C# actually, because I don't think there should be any differences here. And the differences that do exist are probably not supposed to be here. But interestingly enough, the constructors of the workflow are rather different. This chap here is taking a physical model. Try to understand what's going on here. We're taking a physical model, we're copying a few properties here. And then we are making use of those properties, interestingly enough. So it's never quite as straightforward things around here. Right, so we can't really just copy and paste, that's fine. Nonetheless, we'll copy and paste some of it. So what we'll do is we'll just apply the region to this guy here, I think. Seems a sensible thing to do. So supply the region and the model. And it doesn't look like we need more than one line in the for loop, so now then, since we already have something that takes a region, right, so these guys here now become a region and the model. Now I don't think we need to operate in the model itself, just the region, so something like this should do. Let's just make sure we got the header for the region. It's good to always declare the headers for the types you use. Right, so then get artifact I think is a copy and paste job, so let's just take this guy as is, and then we could say something like this. Start by copying get artifact, I should think. And like I say, this may look a bit strange that we're doing all of this stuff, but remember that this code will eventually become generated code, so that will make more sense then. Let's make sure that we are recording. Yeah, 23 minutes. Did forget to check that the microphone is okay. We've had a lot of problems with sound. Don't really have time to troubleshoot all these things, so we tend to leave the video exactly as it was recorded. This would have been the other way around, I think. Right, so something like this, right? And now we can start to grab bits. So this is this. That looks rather similar. In fact, I'm not entirely sure why the trace is being supplied all the way here. Oh, could it be that the trace is used to call? Yeah, okay, the trace is used to then generate the context. So it probably would have made more oops, I think we just jumped to the wrong place now. Yeah, I think what's happening here is that we're using the tracer to create the context. So I think that's fine. I think LSP is not updating, to be honest. Or could it be that we just forgot to put a comma? Right, okay, cool. Now, we're in the region. So here we probably want to say something like region dot physical region. Seems sensible to me. Although no, just have to be very careful here. We don't really want a physical region. That's a mistake. So let's just not get confused here. We're looking for two different things. So here we need text logical physical region. This may sound a little bit confusing, but there is method in the madness. Here we're iterating through the entire logical physical region, and in the get artifact we're actually just looping through the physical region bit of the logical physical region. So I think that makes sense. Still don't seem to be very happy with we have a const region. Let's make this region non-const, I should think. Right, now then, get artifact will be another copy and paste job. And finally the context will just have a model. And we're going to start removing things in this context, so we don't really want the string properties to go in. And the helper formatters, we want the physical model. Actually, we don't really need a physical model anymore, so we have a logical physical model, so we don't really need that. Technical space version and a tracer. Doesn't look too bad. Right, so now then, if we say show me that context, let's simplify the context slightly. So starters, let's get rid of the formatables model. So we don't really need a physical model. We don't really need a formatables model. And we don't, we do need the helpers. We don't need the streaming properties. We need technical space version, and we need some some tracing. So that's looking better. And finally, just have to get rid of the streaming properties. And now then, if we then look carefully at, oh no, so we still have to do the CBP, so shouldn't take too long. Right, so something like this perhaps. And now let's just make sure don't have a physical model in here. Cool, okay. So we return to the workflow now. hopefully the context now creates. Now we're gonna have the same problem with the assistant, so let's just tackle that. So we need to access the model to get to the physical model, and I think in general this is going to be a common problem. And finally, the streaming properties now become model, not logical. Streaming properties. Now let's see how far that takes us. I suspect we still have at least one break. Exactly. This is just a top level call to both of the chains. And so in this, what we need to now do is to say, just don't bother to do anything to do with formatables, right? So if I just do a quick check for formatables, so I don't really want the formatables model. I probably need to... no, actually that's fine. I think that should be fine. So let's say that there is no formatables model, so therefore there is no creation. And then let's say that this is a text entities model. Means that don't need to do any of this, and this guy here will merely execute against the model. Now we're just propagating everything down. Interestingly enough, we don't seem to require a formatted repository. Not totally sure why not, but look, some of these things we don't have to think, we just have to follow the code. So if he's saying we don't need it, we should just believe. We are not creating a formatables model, and I don't even think, well, to be honest, this code is to go, so let's not get too precious about any of this stuff. So hopefully the C++ chain will now work, and then C# will break, presumably. So you can see here it's now doing all the C++ stuff. We're not going to bother waiting, because we know in a few seconds C# will break, so let's just get ahead of ourselves. Right, so now what we're going to do here is the same thing as we just did. So we don't need formatables. Don't need to generate the formatables model. Nor do we need any of these guys here. I think that sounds about right. So similarly, we can get rid of the formatables model generation. Can make this guy point to the model, and we can just call it with. Okay, so compilation is unhappy. Probably something as simple as logical ID being required in the workflow now, I think. So what we'll do to get this going again is pretty much this logical ID. Let's keep this in mind because this is going to be a common problem. We left streaming properties. Right, so what's going on here? The model, okay, now then. So we don't need aspect properties. tracer. You can imagine we probably don't require a method just to call a function, but there you are. Now we don't need aspect properties in Formatables repository. So what do? We just applied, then after applying we do some kind of hackery here. Interesting that this hackery is not being done in C#. I'm not sure why that is. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, you see, oh no, yeah, okay, it's fine. So let's just put here some kind of fix me hackery to compute manage directories won't be required in the new world. Fine, so we'll just leave this at that, and we'll just make sure that model to text CPP chain. I'm slightly confused. I thought we saw this in C++. Seems like we saw it in C# actually. C++ seems to be lacking. I'm not entirely sure what we're doing here really. So let's think about this for a second. So we need to compute the managed directories. This is basically the directories that the system will need to worry about. I think we do have a hack, but it's not at this level. Let's just see what RG says. We don't have an RG at the moment, so let's jump over to 8. Let's go to the projects directory perhaps. And so let's have a quick look at where any computation is happening. So as we've seen already, we seem to be calculating managed directories in C#. We use it a lot. That's just copying it across. So managed directories as pushback project path. Yeah, so as I thought, we have a hack here already in the legacy paths transform. And that seems to already take into account. So what we'll do is, it's best not to confuse too many issues at a time, so let's just keep this in mind. We'll bookmark here for now. That shouldn't really not be required anymore, so we'll come back to that in a second. I don't really need these guys. So this is our C++ workflow. Now I'm going to break in the transform. Which means I'm going to break in a couple of places here and in the call. Now this is probably just going to be typical logical ID that we forgot to add. Forgot to switch off the sound on the communication. Let's make sure we do. Right, it looks like one of our builds has failed for lunch. Okay. Interestingly, here's one of those. Okay, this is just basically Travis and OS X being annoying. I think we probably will end up having to drop support for all operating systems other than Linux because, well, at least Travis is going to go away, so I'm not sure what GitHub gives us. To have proper cross-platform support, we need cross-compilation, really. Okay, that's not ideal. Well, I guess there's two ways of doing this. First, probably we should just kickstart the debug build because it'll take us a lot less time to look at it in debug. Meanwhile, let's have a look what could be causing the problem. So we're basically calling the workflow. Actually, it wasn't clear whether the problem was coming from C# or from C++, though the test that was failing was C# test. Well, let's give it a second for the debug build. Don't think there's much we can do while we wait. Actually, one thing we can do, funnily enough, we can rename the buffer. Let's call this compilation 1. And let's create another compilation. So I think in order for that to work, you need to press Control U, I think. So let's put the debug build going again. So Control U, Control CPC. This is quite annoying. There is a way of kicking two compilations at the same time. Control U, Control C, Control C. No. Control U, Control C, C. Nope. Okay, well, let's just kickstart that, and then let's have a quick look. Emacs multiple compilation buffers. I'm sure there must be a way to do this. Okay, we rename compilation. Did it noise coming from downstairs? Seems to have gone away. Okay, interesting. So we have got two different compilation buffers. Oh, okay, we achieved what we I'm sorry, we're just not very careful. See, this is what I mean about paying attention to things. We did what we wanted to do. What we did not do is we didn't pay attention to what the screen was saying. So now we have two compilation buffers. Let me just leave compilation running on the other monitor whilst I investigate the compilation release. So, C# ref impl is producing the seg faults. What we could probably do is we could probably so I think we're okay to create more compilations, so I'm just gonna I get confused as to I see. So in order for this to work, you need to let's just concentrate for a second. In order to have multiple compilation buffers, you need to make sure that the buffer called compilation that's running is renamed. So what we need to do then is we need to kill this buffer for a second, start the new compilation on debug. I can build everything, doesn't really matter. Okay, that's going. Now we rename that buffer. Let's just rename that to something else. Compilation 1. So that's done. And now, if I control U, and then if I go back to release, I should get another buffer. Not quite. I'm not too sure what exactly I did a second ago. Anyway, let's just leave the debug build going. So we have. It's a bit annoying, really, because it'd be nice to be able to do two compilations at the same time. So to run more than one compilation at once, start one, then rename the compilation buffer to something other with rename buffer. Switch buffers. Oh, switch buffers. Okay. Perhaps that was a rather important bit that we missed. It doesn't say anything about Control U, so I'm not going to press Control U. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, actually before we even do that, let's just jump over to here and say, please have some logging. Now we can jump over to compilation. Now I see we changed buffers, and we go back to release, and if we just generate everything, and now you can see. So the key thing is to make sure we change buffers, and now you have the two compilations going out at the same time. Quite nice. Now I don't think this is going to break. The reason being that it's the C++, it's a C# model that's breaking, and we don't have any C# models. So whatever we did, it's only C# that seems to be affected by it. But that's a good test anyway. Clearly slowing everything down. Guess we are running quite a lot of processes. Okay, so no problems in C++. Well, let's start preparing our GDB area, I guess. So RT area. So 10 tends to be our email area, if I'm honest, so I'll just leave it here. 11 tends to be our RC area. 12 tends to be our packages area. So I suspect 13 will be a good area. Right, so 13 then. If we just jump over to, okay, it looks like our build's done, so let's jump over to output plan debug, stage bin, and in here we'll have our tests. Now one thing we always have to remember is to copy across the environment variables, else we will fail to start. And locate our tests, these guys here, so if I just GDB these guys, it'll take a few seconds. I mean, you should really try to work out why this is happening, but sometimes you're lazy and just use the debugger. Don't really need this anymore, so let's kill that. Okay, Dogen seems to have built. No, it seems to be building. Curious to see this build because this is it's got all of our changes from the previous session. But while that's going on, let's start our sets. Okay, perhaps not yet. So we need something like something like this. No, you're gonna worry too much. I'm just gonna run and wait for the break. One thing that's slightly annoying is that its shortcuts for the key map for GDB is the same as the key map for eyebrows. So every so often you try to change desktops or areas, and then failing because of GDB. It's taking quite a long time. More than usual, if I'm honest. What are you doing for time? Just about to enter an hour. 10 minutes to that. Didn't think this would be super slow, if I'm honest. Seems to imply we're in some kind of infinite loop, I think. Let's control C this and see where we are. That looks fairly innocuous. Let's just continue, I think. No, okay. So, now then, we don't really need to backtrace because Emacs already queued this backtrace. There we are. So, one thing I don't like about TDB mode seems to be that it never seems to pick the right windows. So where are we then? Slowing down a little bit. Sometimes you get these RTTI symbols not found and they really cane the debugger for some reason. Let's just also switch off company mode because it's not particularly helpful. See, every time we write a command, we get hundreds of these things. Right, anyway, so where are we then? Line 91 of the workflow. Not necessarily the case where you would expect some big problems here. Let's just look very carefully. Unfortunately, we have so much output now, it's going to be hard. Let's just very carefully at the segfault itself. This is going to be something absolutely trivial, but always the way. It just requires a little bit of thinking. Probably just created some dangling reference, I think. So we did a lookup. Oh, okay. Okay, we broke something. Okay, let's just stop here for a second. We did something very silly in that workflow. Let's have a look at the diff for this thing. Rather creatively colored by Emacs, but there's going to be one thing that's of relevance, which is hard to see anything with all this. I don't quite understand how this was working in the past. In fact, maybe the diff might not be sufficient here. Let's just look at head. Yeah, that's quite remarkable how this worked at all. We should really do something like continue here. Because if there are no formatters, seems a bit strange that we attempt to do stuff. Not quite sure how that was working, but there you are. Okay, now sadly the reason why we have that is purely because we created a file and it's probably checking for well, now what we need to do is to get rid of our second compilation because it's getting quite confusing now. Right, okay, cool. So that solved all our problems. I don't understand why this was working before, but hey, there you go. We fixed the bug. That's good. Let's just move on. So what have we done then? We are now no longer relying on formatables at all in the pipeline for code generation, which is a good thing. So if I say something like text.cpp C#, use text model instead of formatables model. That should now give us the last step on our long quest. I mean, there's still a lot of cleanup. I'm not sure if that's going to be part of this video series or not, but so what we shall do now is delete formatables. As you can see here, this will mark the end of our refactoring for formatables model. So after a great deal of pain, we seem to have managed to remove the formatables model. Of course, this is not the end of it because not sure why that failed. This is not the end of it because when we remove this, I'm sure things were going to break. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we probably need to update our contexts. So it's 24 parts. Series of videos was long and difficult, but I have to have a certain sense of accomplishment, I guess, even though we haven't quite achieved anything particularly special because we still have loads of work to do, and this refactoring was a bit of a sidestep in many ways. Text entities.model. Interesting. I'm not sure why that's failing. Let's think about this for a second. So text entities model. That sounds about right, doesn't it? Text entities model. Why is this failing? Let's have a look more carefully. Sure why that's failing. I wonder if don't recall having to supply a full path to any element. Maybe found another bug. To be honest, this is really a bit annoying because did I misspell it? Dogen.text.entities.model. We definitely have a Dogen.text.entities.model. Is it that we're not including the text model, perhaps? would explain why C++ works. Yes. So let's try that then. Be nice if the reference actually just told you you forgot to add a reference, but that's going to be much later on. Okay, now then, lots of removals. Let's just have a look at what the tests show. We still have Formatables workflow, funnily enough. Oh, no, sorry, it's initialized. Okay, fine. Not to worry, so these are just going to be all the remnants. Every time we did a reference to the Formatables model. We mustn't forget that hackery that we left over there. Do that next. And also, how are we doing in terms of stories? I think. Yeah, so we're not even clocking at the moment. So we should probably be clocking against this story, I should think. And did we clock at all after lunch? No, I think so. So perhaps this will be 1400, I guess. Not quite sure what time we came back up. Let's just try 1402, I think. Probably lost a few minutes there, but... So add C++ helpers to the PMM, we completed this task. Move a sort of format to C++, completed this task. Remove JSON models, create a patch with test, move stitch. Prune non-generatable types from the logical model, remove formattable namespace in C++. We just done that. Prune non-generatable types, create a combined system text. Clean up helpers, interface, and move it to text. Right, so now we're going to enter the next. So this could be cancelled, I think, because we don't need this story anymore. Deleted class. So that's no longer a problem. Okay, test pass. Okay, I think we are more or less done with all the formattable stories. So, we just need to close things. So let's make sure that code generate is still working. Probably now start another series of videos, given that this is done, and the next series of videos is going to be probably on the merge. Well, actually, I'm not sure if it's going to be a very exciting series of videos, really. We need to merge these models, we need to merge text into a single model. Might not be the most exciting series of videos, really, because there will be a lot of copying and pasting involved, and not a lot of talk on the more fundamental problems. It might not be worthwhile recording that, I don't think. that's probably the next thing we're going to tackle, I think. Now let's just complete our Formatables refactor. And that will complete with text.cpp, C#, remove, in fact we don't need to commit these two things at the same time, but well, we've done it already. Remove formatables, namespace, and types. And with that commit, we have finished the Formatables refactor. So thanks for bearing with us in this, 25 video series. It was quite interesting. We managed to get a lot of stuff done, although I did not think it was going to be this complicated and take this long, but that tends to be the thing that always happens around here. Oh, actually, sorry, before we go, I did say we should really look into that hackery on the C#. Yeah, I don't actually think any of this is required anymore. So let's see what happens. Just gonna quickly run the tests. That looks great. So let's just say something like text.cpp, C# even, remove hacks for managed directory in chain. We have hacks somewhere else, we basically had a double hack. We don't need that anymore. And as I say, we should always get the code generator to the latest, compile. Taking his time. Hopefully we're not in debug. We are in debug. This is a classic mistake that tends to happen around here. Start doing things in debug and forget to put it back into the release. Okay, cool. There you are. Code generator is working without formatables. So we managed to achieve our objective, which was to remove the formatables model. So thanks very much for watching this rather long series of videos.